You'll notice that I'm coming to you from my front room here in Nashville, Tennessee. And the reason I'm doing that is I've got some breaking news for you. Another software provider has been verified by the GSEs. SFREP has been verified to begin UAD 3.6 software production. We recorded this podcast with Matt Johnson before this announcement was made, but we wanted to add on this intro to make sure everyone knows SFREP has been verified by the GSEs. Also, even more news for you, you should be able to get your hands on it soon. They're hoping before the end of this week, SFREP users will be able to accept, perform, and submit UAD 3.6 compliant appraisals through SFREP public beta. But before you do that, before you head over to sfrep.com and try it out, stick around as we chat with Matt Johnson at SFREP about the process getting ready for UAD 3.6.
Intercorp, a division of Norman Spencer, has your back. Comprehensive insurance coverage from a team that's always there when you need them. The team at Norman Spencer is ready to roll up our sleeves and dig into your toughest insurance questions. We're committed to appraisers and AMCs. Intercorp's programs are tailored specifically for the appraisal industry. Put our experience to work for you. Please contact Susan Lomeli, Lomeli, at norman-spencer.com to discuss your insurance needs. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast with your host, Hal Humphreys.
Welcome everyone back to today's Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Jim Morrison. Let me bring back in our host, Hal Humphreys. Hey Hal, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, Jim. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. We are really excited to have one of the names in appraisal software, one of the national names, but this is the first time we've had him on our Buzzcast. I know our audience has heard from him in the past with some of our webinars and conferences, but I'm excited to have him on the Buzzcast. Let me bring in Matt Johnson of SFREP. Hey, Matt.
Hey, how you doing? Are you talking me up? It's just, it's great.
Matt,
it is great to be here. It's great to be here.
We're so excited to have you on the podcast today, Matt. It's, you and I have seen each other at conferences. We've had conversations over the years. I've always liked our interactions. I'm tickled to have you here. There's this weird thing that happens in the appraisal space, which is you see the same faces, you see the same people, you chat, you get to know a little bit about them. But I'm really excited to spend some time with you today. And the first thing I'd like for you to do, Matt, is just tell our listeners a little bit about your history in this industry, how you got wrapped up in this crazy world of real estate appraisal.
You know what? When I went back to college I had a earlier career in radio. And when I went back to college, because there's no money in radio, to get a degree in computer information systems, I started working for a small software company in the small town of Sylva, North Carolina, in the mountains of Western North Carolina, doing tech support. It was just going to be a part-time gig, something to do to earn some money while in college. And 19 years later, here I am, the communications director of the company. I am not an appraiser, but I probably know more about appraising than I would ever want to do. And back during COVID, our company kind of went, like a lot of companies did, we went fully remote. And that allowed me to move back down to Charlotte, my hometown, which is where I live now. And, got to take care of the folks. They're getting older and just getting back into that city lifestyle.
I love it. I love it. Well, Matt, UAD 3.6, there's so many interesting things about this project. It is not a new project. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been working on this for years. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of the gist of it is they've designed UAD 3.6 with a very specific output they're looking for. They want the data to land in specific spots. And there's no real concern from their point of view of how you get to that spot, how you get the data into the process and to where it is they want it in the data set. How is SFREP approaching this process, number one? And number two, how is SFREP getting the data through the process to the specific spot where the GSEs want it.
Well, it's exactly right. They don't really care how the software vendors collect the information, and that's why you see the four big players in this industry. Not to say there aren't some smaller guys that are up and coming, but Alamode, ACI, Bradford, and us have chosen somewhat different ways of doing things. Bradford and ACI chose a web-based web form that you fill out, and then it generates the report at the end. Whereas us and Alamode chose to go the same route that that appraisers have been filling out appraisal reports for decades, which is what's called what you see is what you get, or WYSIWYG. And that will basically, with our two software vendors, with Alamode and SFREP, the user will be filling out the actual form like a graphical representation of the form. And when I say, well, not form, they don't like you to say that, or the report. And when I say that, what I mean is think of the PDF version of the report that's going to get delivered to the lenders and to the end users, the buyer and the seller. The user with our software is going to be filling out a graphical representation of that, just like they have for decades, filling out individual fields, checking check boxes, using pull down menus. So it's going to be less of a disruption to their workflow.
And I think that's a really critical thing when you've got a new process to deal with. Having some degree of comfort with the way things are done is, I think, very helpful. Some of the other software providers are going to a new interface, that web-based interface you're talking about. I think some appraisers are going to find that to be too hard to get their head around, in sense of like, I've had several conversations with appraisers. I'm guessing you have as well, Matt, where their main concern right now is, I just want to see what the thing looks like.
Right.
And they can't visualize what the end product is going to look like, what the end report is going to look like. And I think that interface that you're talking about with SFREP is, you've got a graphical representation of what the report is going to look like at the end of the day. Now, one interesting thing to me is, I don't think the GSEs care one iota about what a PDF looks like. They're looking for the data to go into certain slots in their system. Am I right about that?
Actually, they very much care about what the PDF looks like. We have been dealing with them in a lot of what we're dealing with, and what's kind of slowing the process down. They're very particular about how the PDF is going to look. They've come back and said, hey, this line needs to be a couple of pixels up or a couple of dots up. This is a little bit too dark. This is a little bit too rounded. This isn't rounded enough. So they're very particular about what the final product's going to look like, in addition to the actual XML output. And maybe a lot of appraisers don't understand, there are two sides to an appraisal report. There's the computer readable version, which is the XML version. Think of, if you've ever seen HTML, it looks very similar, that a computer can parse and read and easily go through. And then there's the PDF version, which is the human readable version. And they've been very, very particular about both of those.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the final product that is going to end up in the hands of consumers, buyers, sellers, real estate agents, whoever gets a copy of the report in the process, needs to be, as we say, uniform. That makes sense to me. And I'm glad to hear that they are focusing on what that final report looks like. At the same time, and I'm glad you pointed this out, for most of us appraisers, all we think about is this report and what it's going to look like, and in terms of the PDF that we're going to deliver to our clients. But there is this other side, which is the XML, which is basically a way to take a little packet of data and put it in a specific spot in an end user's software to be able to analyze and deal with it. I think one thing that a lot of appraisers don't understand is, while the report that we're delivering to our clients in our mind is that PDF, and that's what we're going to be taking responsibility for in terms of, if somebody turns this into a state for a complaint or something like that, that's the record of what we did. But the data that's being delivered through the XML it is the same information. It's just in a different format that their machines can read. And
Right.
again, I think the primary thing for appraisers right now is what's it going to look like? How's it going to appear, and that kind of business.
They want to they do want to make sure that every report looks identical to every other report, whether it was made in a la mode, whether it was made with Bradford, ACI, SFREP, Ivory, whoever it is. They want each of those reports to be indistinguishable from any other report. And I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the same order. It's there's no more, putting your own brand or spin on an appraisal report and having it be in a specific order that you really like. They want it in a very specific order, and that's how it has to be delivered.
And speaking of that, so we're getting away from, like, I've heard 4,862 times in the last 2 months, there will be no more general addendum. And personally, I think that's fantastic.
Me too.
I like the way, when you hear the GSEs talk about this new report, they're talking about data clusters. So all of the information around the interior of a unit is specific to the interior of the unit. And that output makes sense to me. And I think it will make sense to end users a lot more than the old 1004 URAR made. Matt, we've both been doing this for a minute. And while you're not an appraiser, you've been working in the software space for long enough that I'm sure you feel like an appraiser, and you know as much about appraisal process as most of us out here. But the ability to have a report that looks identical across software providers, the output is let's just call it what it is, the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, the URAR. That's the uniform part of it. Yeah. One question I have for you is, give me an example of a massive roadblock that you guys ran into that you're like, oh my gosh, and how you approached that.
The whole thing's been a massive roadblock, but I will gladly speak for all the software vendors. We needed another year, but with that said, we got it done. Lots of sleepless nights, lots of long weekends. We were fortunate in that we rewrote our software from the ground up, all brand new code in the current development environment from Microsoft back in 2019, like right before the pandemic hit. And so it was a happy accident, or just a good fluke, that we ended up in a really good position to do something like this. ACI, Bradford, they were on older development environments. And so they, that necessitated them having to kind of start from clean sheet and make something new. We were at least able to put this interface into our existing software. So one of the things that I love about the way that Appraisal Pro is going to be handling this is that, you're going to have your UAD 2.6 and all of your third-party forms and nonlinear forms in the same place as the new UAD 3.6. So it's all in one software package. But I would say the biggest hurdle we had was the dynamic nature of the report, being able to make it so that when you check a checkbox, things happen down below. It's easier when you check a checkbox or you use a pull down to say that this is an attached property, and now you're probably dealing with a condo or a townhome, and things are happening off screen. But to have something on screen right below start to happen and fill in, that was a challenge, a UI challenge that we had to deal with, user interface challenge. But I love the way that our small development team came up with showing that, where things kind of fade in, and I think it looks really cool and snazzy, and I think people are going to really like it. But that I would definitely say the dynamic nature of this form, trying to shoehorn that into the way that we've been doing appraisal software in the past was a huge hurdle for us.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that same hurdle and felt the same way about it. Let me ask you this. A lot of changes in the way this thing is put together. Is there a specific change that comes to mind that you think, wow, that is a really good step in the right direction?
Yeah, getting rid of all of these cryptic abbreviations. I know that existing appraisers who have been doing this for a very long time have been dealing with UAD 2.6 abbreviations, know them by heart, know how to type them in without using some type of UAD helper interface. But two people this is really going to be great for, two types of people. The first is going to be new appraiser trainees coming into the industry. It's going to be so much easier for them to learn how to do a dynamic report versus having to memorize and figure out all of these weird cryptic abbreviations that were frankly put in there because the GSEs wanted to collect more data but didn't want to change the form, which I thought was a mistake. This is the way I thought they should have done it back in 2009, 2010. The other person I think it's really going to benefit is going to be the end user, the buyer and the seller. I recently sold a house and then turned around and bought a house. And I gave my wife the appraisal that came through. And she looked at it, started to try to read it, went to the comp grid, and was just like, what is all of this? What's a C3? What is this Q? I don't understand. I said, well, there's an addendum back here in the back that you can read through, and it'll tell you what it is. And she just threw her hands up and handed it to me. He's like, you know how to read this. Just tell me what it says. So
Yeah.
now they're going to have a printed out report that they're going to be able to read and not have to thumb back and forth through. That's going to look the same no matter what they're doing. So when they get an appraisal done on the house that they're buying right now, it's going to look the same as when they sell it, 5, 7 years later.
Yeah, and half of the training when UAD first came out was on the abbreviations.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. Like I've taught the new UAD course a number of times now. People are asking, what about the abbreviations? You don't have to worry about it. You click a thing and they drop down. You pick the one that fits, or you click other and you type in what you need to type in. So there are some changes to this that are like it. I've described it as a colossal change for us as real estate appraisers, and I still think it is. But I think get past the learning curve of this new UAD 3.6, and I think we're all going to find efficiencies and a better workflow that works in a more meaningful fashion. All right, so why so many different approaches to get to the same thing? You've got several different software providers out there. Why everybody's taking a different approach to it?
I mean, I think that there are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches. There's really two approaches. There's what they call the TurboTax approach, or a wizard interface, where you collect some information, click next, collect some more information, click next. That's the way that ACI from Bradford chose to go. That lends itself well to a web interface, and having a web interface has some advantages where you can have multiple people working on reports at the same time from different locations, as long as you have a good data connection. There's some disadvantages to that too, though. You have to upload all of your images each time, all of your addendums. So you're gonna have a really good upstream internet connection to be able to do that. There are I think a lot of advantages to having an application-based approach. It's what people are used to. You don't have to worry about having a nice fast data connection. Everything is being done locally, so it's nice and fast and works really well. There's cloud aspects to the way we're doing things. Users can store things on OneDrive or on Dropbox, things like that, so that allows that collaboration. But having the application locally is going to make it a much faster experience, and you're not really reliant on somebody else to be able to do your appraisal. So if your internet goes down, you can still keep working, and you'll just do your flood map or your street map or whatever later on when you get internet.
Right. Okay. All right.
But the
So
reason I will say this, the reason I think that and I said this earlier, the reason I think they did that, it, ClickForms and ACI, they were just built on an older platform, and it worked. It was ClickForms is a great product. I'm friends with them. They have a great product, but it is built on an older platform. So they could not put this type of a dynamic form into their existing product. They were forced to have to build a whole new product.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the things I think a lot of times appraisers don't fully understand is this is a very small community of people who build software for this space. And the reason it's such a small community is there's a finite number of appraisers out there. There is no chance to scale this software in terms of like a normal software developer would be scaling. So everybody in this space knows everybody else in the space. And, while there is healthy competition going on, we all get along for the most part. And the software providers that I've spoken with, all of them, and they're all singing off the same shit of music of the frustrations, the excitements, those kind of things. Matt, let me ask you this. I'm an appraiser. I've been doing things the same way for the past 35 years. I'm going to have to rethink my workflow. I'm going to have to rethink my process. Two-part question. Is this a really good time for me to consider a new software? And if it is, why should I consider SFREP?
Okay. It is a great time to consider other software for two huge reasons. One, you are going to have to relearn how to do a report anyway. So if you have been thinking about moving to a different software provider, now would be the time to do it, and see the way that other software providers have implemented the new UAD 3.6. And then the other reason is that my friend Joel Baker over at Alamode loves to say this. There's only a 6% overlap between the old UAD data and the new UAD data. So you're not really going to be able to import or bring over data from your old reports anymore. You're going to be starting anew. You're going to be starting fresh. And so that baggage that has kept people with their current software provider kind of goes away, especially as we get 6 months down the road where you're going to be able to start referencing previous UAD 3.6 reports that you've done. So I think that alone really makes it so that it's a great time to start looking what other people are doing. Why should you look at SFREP? We're cheaper. Most people that come over to us do our $99 per month plan. We don't do yearly contracts. So they'll do our $99 a month plan, which is going to give them pretty much everything that they're going to need. We do have cheaper plans, and you can do a la carte stuff, but we do monthly billing. We can do yearly, but we do monthly billing, no contracts. We license directly to the individual signing appraiser. So if you have office workers or if you have trainees, there's no charge for them. You can install it on as many computers as you want, no extra charge for running it in a network. And we're a small company. We've got our we're completely and totally US based for both programming. We don't farm out our programming overseas. Everything is done in Western North Carolina. And most of the people that work for our company, it's a great company to work for. They give me 100% healthcare. It's amazing. And most of our employees have been here for, 10, 15 years. And we really are passionate about our customers and the way we do things. I will also say, don't just, come look at us. If you're a Bradford customer, if you're an ACI customer, if you're an Alamode customer, go look at the other people too. I want you to look at ACI and see what they're doing. I want you to try out and see what Nighthawk from Bradford is all about. I want you to try out some of the new guys. Go try Ivory, see what they're doing. Ask the software vendors how they're handling the UAD 2.6, how they're handling doing non-lender forms. That's going to be important. Do you have to use separate programs? And then ask them about their pricing. Is it per appraisal? Is there going to be an extra charge for UAD 3.6? Things like that. And then I hope you'll like what we're doing. And I do want to remind everybody, 6 months free. We do offer our software completely free, no strings attached, for 6 months, fully usable. You don't even have to give us a credit card. If you don't like it at the end of the 6 months, we'll part ways.
I like it. I like it very much. Matt, thank you for being here. I need to do one thing real quick. I need to hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Are you ready to take your career in real estate appraisal to the next level? Join the Appraisal Institute, your go-to source for expert insights, industry trends, and the latest updates from the world of valuation. Whether you're an experienced appraiser or just starting out, they bring you industry resources, classes, and all the knowledge you need to stay ahead. Join today and be part of a community that's shaping the future of the appraisal profession. Visit appraisalinstitute.org to learn more and become a member.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Hal Humphreys, your host. I'm joined today by Matt Johnson from SFREP. We've been talking about UAD 3.6, the thing we've all been waiting for since limited production began. Well, was allowed, was launched, but didn't actually launch. We've been hearing about UAD 3.6 for quite some time. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me today and to talk through y'all's process on UAD 3.6 and how you approached it. I'm going to warn you, Matt, Jim Morrison likes to come at us, me and my guest, with an anonymous appraiser question to try and trip us up. Okay. Jim Morrison, do we have an anonymous appraiser question that we can consider today?
We do, and we appreciate all the comments on the Appraisal Buzz and on our YouTube page. We appreciate you. This is kind of a combination of a lot of more comments than a question. And it says, using some tech or app is going to take forever and cost me so much. This is going to slow down the whole process. It's much faster to just use a clipboard and go home and type up the report. What do you guys think about that? I'm getting that a lot. So I see those comments. You guys don't have to keep repeating it.
Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I've heard that as well. We're addressing it by we're going to actually have printable checklists that those that are clipboard warriors that really insist on doing that can take out into the field and fill out their information and then bring it back and retype it. However, I do think that when you use that and you do that a couple of times, you're going to realize that that is very inefficient. Using a mobile app is going to make your life so much easier. Collect the data, write it out, put it in once, and then just pop it into the appraisal when you get back to the office. So, in the grand scheme of things, what you're paying for a mobile app per month with us, I think it's $20. If you divide that out by how many appraisals you do a month, it's going to be a worthwhile investment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my mom and dad used to pay my nephew to come over, their grandchild, to come over and help them work the remote control on the VCR back in the day. My dad finally learned how to use the remote control because it was inefficient. It was a pain. And if he was trying to watch something, that he really wanted to watch and Trey wasn't available, he had to figure it out on his own. Is it possible to use a clipboard? Absolutely. It is also possible to take a horse and buggy on your inspections. It works. It does work. I'm making a little bit of fun here. I am a Luddite by nature. I like a pencil. I like paper. I like to draw my drawings with graph paper. It is so inefficient to do that. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be learning a new process anyway, get yourself stuck in on the mobile applications. Learn how to do this process. My answer to this point of it's going to take so much longer. It may, in the beginning, take you a lot longer on site to do your property data collection, what we as appraisers used to call the inspection. It may take you a little bit longer. It may take you quite a bit longer for the first several times. I'm going to suggest that that time is going to diminish as you get more comfortable with the software. And the thing that the people that are expressing these objections about the mobile application gathering data is going to take so much longer are neglecting to consider is when you get back to your office, there is no rekeying information, handing a printed off sheet of paper to your assistant to have them type it in, redrawing the sketch. It's done. You're going to save so much time on the back end that a little bit extra time on site is going to be more than made up on the back end. And I will admit, Matt, I've had this experience. When I started using a mobile app for my appraisal inspections 10 years ago, it took me incredibly longer to do my inspections. Matter of fact, the first couple of times, I think I made up curse words. I was so angry with the device and my ability to use it or lack thereof. And I got nervous having the homeowner watching me fiddle around with this tech. That's going to happen a few times, maybe several times, but get through it. And I promise you, it's going to make the entire process more efficient. That's my answer.
Absolutely. I totally agree. 100% agree. Yeah. Appraisers are notoriously resistant to change. But sometimes that change is going to make your life a whole lot easier and you just have to give it a chance.
Yeah. Give it a chance. Okay. Morrison, how did we do?
You did great. We appreciate it. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And if we have nothing else, For Jim Morrison and Matt Johnson, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.